Arlington Heights Road, number 102, Arlington Heights, Illinois, 60004. Our producer, Mark Greta. I'm Steve Hiller. Thanks for listening, and I hope you'll join us next time.
Encounter the Truth with Jonathan Griffin. A quick phone call connects you with the ministry at 833-99-TRUTH. That's 833-99-TRUTH. You can also visit them online, encounterthetruth.org. Again, mention our call letters, KAAM, whenever you connect with any of our ministry partners. Ronald L. Dart has part 2 of his encore sermon before Pentecost, next on Born to Win. I want to say a word or two today about an increasingly common condition known as fetal alcohol syndrome. With today's Dr. Dobson Minute, here's Dr. James Dobson. Now, the fetus can be damaged by alcohol throughout the entire 9 months gestation, but he or she is especially vulnerable in the first trimester of development. Alcohol in the blood of the mother at that time can produce devastating problems, including heart anomalies, central nervous system dysfunction, head and facial abnormalities, and lifelong behavior problems. And tragically, fetal alcohol syndrome is also thought to be the leading cause of mental retardation. If you're pregnant, or if you anticipate becoming pregnant, don't take chances with your baby's future. There is no level of alcohol that's known to be safe. Abstain for the entire 9 months. You and your baby will be so glad you did. For more information, visit DrDobsonMinute.org. KAAM's very own estate planning attorney, Michael Cohen.
What is community property? Usually it's assets that are acquired during marriage. Sometimes you could trace property that was owned prior to marriage. So if he kept things separate from prior to marriage and didn't have a pre- or post-nuptial agreement, then that separate property, so let's say you had a house in New Mexico prior to marriage, then that property would still be separate property. But let's say he had a CD and he kept it separate all those years, then I suppose that would be separate property, but the interest, at least in Texas, would be community property.
Once again, estate planner Michael Cohen demonstrates his exceptional knowledge of Texas law, and that is why you should attend his next free workshop this month to ask him any question you like about estate planning or government assistance. Call 214-720-0102 or go to DallasElderLawyer.com. Dynamic leaders, shaping a new generation. They bring a variety of perspectives from diverse backgrounds, innovating how they teach to prepare students for our fast-changing world. Achieving this takes skill and expertise. They're tireless explorers, creatively discovering a universe of solutions, telling stories, experimenting, inspiring, mentoring, connecting cultures, and connecting with each other. Leading by example. Experience the unique joy of helping students thrive. Teaching is a journey that shapes lives. Are you ready to begin? Explore teaching at teach.org, a campaign supported by the U.S. Department of Education, teach.org, and 1 million teachers of color.
My mom is a veteran and she was injured in the line of duty.
I hurt my leg in a training accident when she was only 2 years old.
She had 7 different surgeries over the span of 9 years, and there were tons of complications.
I couldn't be the mom my kids needed me to be.
She missed so much.
After my last surgery, I got an infection so bad I thought it was going to kill me.
I told her she couldn't leave me yet. There was still so much she had to see. I hadn't even graduated.
I'm doing much better now. I may have lost my leg, but I've gained so much. I'm an active part of my kids' lives.
She can kick a mean soccer ball.
DAV's been there for me and my family. Through thick and thin, they've had our back.
Every year, DAV helps more than 1 million veterans like Sandy get the health and disability benefits they've earned, so they can achieve victories great and small.
My victory is getting my life back. I got my joy back.
We got our mom back, thanks to DAV.
Support more victories for veterans. Go to DAV.org.
770 KAAM.
Christificational Ministries is pleased to present this encore sermon by Ronald L. Dart. And now, part 2 of Before Pentecost.
Now, there's an interesting thing that's added to this. I don't think it's added. I think it's very much an integral part of this festival that we are now, in a way, observing. When you reap the harvest of your fields, when you're actually going through the process of working 6 days and resting the seventh and getting the grain into and threshing it, he says, you shall not make a clean riddance of the corners of your field. When you reap, neither shall you gather the gleaning of your harvest. You shall leave them unto the poor and to the stranger. I am the Lord your God. Now, do you suppose that since we don't go out and harvest grain, since I don't have any barley, I don't have any wheat, I don't have any rye, I have no grains that I have anything to do with, that then in principle this doesn't exactly apply to me? You see, in this 7-week period of time, of which this day is the 6th Sabbath involved in, Israel was instructed always systematically to leave something behind for the poor. Don't be greedy. Don't be selfish. Don't be the stingy kind of person who picks up everything and leaves nothing behind. Leave something for the poor. You know, it seems to me that it would be an awfully good thing for us during the 7 weeks that lead up to Pentecost to really turn a little attention to the poor who are among us and around us and live close to us. Now, I don't know how to do anything about the poor who live in Los Angeles. I don't feel it's my job to try to solve the problem of the poor in Ethiopia or those poor people in Bangladesh to whom my heart goes out. I'll make a contribution to the Red Cross. I don't know what else I can do for those people, and it is a bottomless pit. There is no end to it. In my lifetime, in my day-to-day life, I do come into contact with poor people. I do interact with poor people from time to time. And it's a far cry, and a far different thing, really, for me to go giving money to somebody else to in turn give to the poor, or to pay money to some service that does some kind of service for the poor. It's a different thing for me to find a poor person and try to help that poor person out of their situation. And if this time of year was a time when we are specifically told when we're out there busily getting our harvest in, to leave something for the poor, it might not be a bad tradition for us to consider in our church that this is a time of year, not just this time of year, but especially at this time of year, that we make it a point to look out the poor who are among us and to look out the poor who are nearby us and are next to us, or people who have fallen poor as our neighbors, and to consider what there is that we may do for them and to help them. And I don't mean by that we just give them money and send them on their way. There are times when giving a poor person money is precisely what is needed and is all that is needed. That's what's called for. But a lot of the poor people I knew need something very different from that. They need instruction. They need some direction. They need a job. They need knowledge. They need tools in some cases. They need different things depending upon who they are, how old they are, how infirm they are. They need different things. And there's no way to know what poor people need unless you know poor people. There's no way to know how to help poor people unless you talk to poor people. And this is an obligation that was laid upon Israel in the very earliest parts of God's law. And I hearken back to a time in the New Testament when the big controversy had come up about whether or not they were to be circumcised and to keep the law and all the kinds in Acts 15. When Paul recounts that later, he said that the people I met in Jerusalem that I went down and I talked to about my ministry added nothing to me, but they gave me the right hand of fellowship that I should go to the Gentiles and they'll go to the Jews. He said there was only one thing they mentioned to me, and that I should be careful to take care of the poor. He said the same which I also was forward to do. In other words, those ministers in the early church, the deacons, the elders, and the brethren, realized that one of the most fundamental duties they had was to be concerned about the poor, to help the poor. And as I said, I don't just mean clothes, I don't just mean food, I don't just mean money. I mean knowledge, tools, ways, help, encouragement, motivation, something. And the only way you can do that and do it effectively is to talk to the person who is poor. Without knowing, you have no idea what you can do that would help. And of course, as I said, there are people who do need food in particular. There are people who do need clothes. There are people who need money. But even those people need more than that. They need self-respect. They need somebody who cares about them. They need someone who's interested in them, some direction, some instruction, training, all those things you can talk about them. Deuteronomy 24, interestingly enough, addresses this subject in a slightly different vein, and I think it's important for us to understand this principle. Deuteronomy 24, and I'll begin reading in verse 19. When you cut down your harvest in your field, and you have forgot a sheaf in the field, you shall not go again to fetch it. It shall be for the stranger, for the fatherless, for the widow, that the Lord your God may bless you in the work of your hands. Now this is this time of year in Israel that this was talking about, this harvest time. This scripture has great relevance for right now in the end of the sixth week of the Pentecost cycle. You've just come in and you've forgotten a sheaf in the field. I left that one out there. I had 7, I only brought in 6. It tells you don't even go back to get it. Leave it for the poor, the stranger, and the fatherless. Why? So that the Lord your God may bless you. That if you're going to hold on to every last dime, if you're going to squeeze the nickel till the buffalo hollers, as it is, if you're going to scrape every piece of grain out of the ground and rake it and so forth and sift the dust out of it and take it home with you, then God is not in a position to bless you. Notice the expression, you actually do this in order to free God. It is as though his hands are tied in his blessing of you if you do not take some care for the poor. It's interesting that in these particular illustrations, it has to do with things that you don't do. It has to do with things you leave behind and neglect to take with you. And don't bother it. It isn't as though you had to go a long way out of your way. Just something that you left behind. When you beat your olive tree, you shall not go over the boughs a second time. It shall be for the stranger, for the fatherless, and for the widow. When you gather the grapes of your vineyard, you shall not glean it afterward. It shall be for the stranger, and the fatherless, and the widow. And you shall remember that you were a bondman in the land of Egypt. Therefore I command you to do this thing. There's a real lesson in there. I never was in my lifetime a slave. But I did grow up poor. And I remember what it was like. I can't say that I ever went to bed with an empty belly. I can't say that I ever had to sleep out in the cold, but by standards that people call people poor today, I grew up poor. And it would be a terrible shame for me, having grown up that way, to be so inconsiderate or uncaring or unthoughtful or ungiving or selfish where poor people are concerned. Because there are a lot of poor people out there who are not poor because it's not their fault. It's not their doing. They didn't create the problem. Now, I will grant you, some people have. Some people are poor because they're lazy, and some people don't have things because they're negligent. But in a lot of cases, they got themselves in that situation. They would like to get out of it. They'd like to find a way out of it, and they just can't find it. They are trapped. The task, in a way, that is laid open for those of us who know God is to say, there but for the grace of God go I. What if I were in their shoes? Or rather, God comes back to Israel and says, well, look, remember, you were in their shoes. You were that way, and I delivered you out of that. You know, when you stop and think about it, most of us who achieve in life, most of us who manage to get somewhere or go somewhere, if we really stop and think about it, owe a great deal of what we are to somebody. Today we handed out a lot of roses to mothers in this place. A lot of us owe a great deal of what we are to our mothers and to our fathers. But a lot of times there is someone else who played that role in your life. Someone who looked at you and saw something that nobody else had seen. Somebody who said, this person can accomplish something, and cared enough to take hold of you and to point you in